If you're anything like me, I always seem to experience a bit of slump before spring begins properly, and this is me pulling myself out of it and getting back on it. I've just been swimming. I'm now on my way to ride a local chain gang, something I haven't done for many weeks. I can't actually remember when I last went out. Maybe Christmas time. So I think it's going to be a case hanging on and seeing how long I last. So I'm just making my way over to the chain gang, and later in the video I'll tell you about the springtime blues, how I get over them, and maybe a little bit about my new bike. Maybe a tad keen in shorts and short sleeve jersey today. I always feel quite hot after swimming, and this is quite a hard, intense ride. So I'll do my best to try and film some of the chain gang ride, but it's pretty difficult when you're riding out your skin, just trying to keep up. I'm riding south, they're probably riding north, and we'll intercept somewhere and I'll turn around and join on the back. There could be 3 people, there could be 10 people. It's all part of the mystery. And then there's a couple of people away and a couple of people racing. So we'll just have to find out when we get there. There's the 3 of them down there. We just crossed paths. So now it's a little chase. Get on the back. Great to be back on it. Approaching Fording Bridge. Some say after that's where the hard work really begins, with a series of climbs and rises all the way to the Wimborne area. An impromptu gravel ride on the climb out of Fording Bridge. Camera. Oh no, it's just me and Bob. Hopefully be picking up a tailwind in a minute. It's been a headwind for a little while now. Just me and Bob, bit of a 2-up, split out of Cranbourne. You have to do the worst turn. What we do now is drop down into Wimborne, go on a lovely bit of cycle path, then back on the road around the airport, back to Herne. Oh, here it is, best cycle path in Dorset. Dropping down to Harley Cross, where you can always guarantee a red light for a cheeky little bit of rest. Coming around the airport now, the last little bit of the ride, final mile or 2, and we're done. Rolling back into Herne Post Office, where it all began. So that's the chain gang done and dusted, and I survived. I think it's still classed as a gang because 2's company, 3's a crowd, so I guess 4's a chain gang. Split in Cranbourne, me and Bob went off on the climb and then basically did a 2-up round to the finish. So it's a little bit different to your normal chain gang, longer turns on the front, probably slightly less intense, but definitely a good workout. And as well as being a great workout in its own right, the Bournemouth Jubilee Wheelers chain gang is a good little test of fitness to see how you're going, benchmark yourself against others. So actually I was relatively pleased with how I felt today. Thought I was going to get dropped, but I didn't, so that's positive. Sunday morning, the day after that fantastic training ride yesterday, legs aren't feeling too bad, and I'm heading out to do 4-hour endurance ride out across to Dorset to get some nice hills in. Just a solo one today, because most of the people I ride with are either away doing races or other events, but sometimes it's nice just to get out on your own, taking the scenery, ride at the pace you want, and just enjoy the day. That was not an ideal start. About 12 minutes in, now my feet are soaked. One of the places I'm heading today is Shaftesbury, and I want to ride up Gold Hill, the famous cobble climb from the Hovis adverts. One thing I mentioned yesterday was the spring blues. But what are the spring blues? Maybe I've coined the term myself. But it's that kind of time of year where you're transitioning from winter to spring, and maybe you lose a bit of motivation. You're not quite super fit, the weather's not fantastic, and perhaps you're still a little way out from any events that you've got planned. It's almost like that final slog through winter to get to the joy of spring and summer. And speaking to a few people this year, I think it's been particularly bad just because of how grim and wet the weather's been in the UK, probably for at least the last 6 to 8 months. So this last week's been about pulling myself out of the spring blues and enjoying cycling again and getting motivated and fired up for those events later this year. On a personal level, what's made it more difficult for me this year, and this is a bit of a first world problem, was actually doing the Atlas Mountain Race. It was obviously a big challenge I was working towards, and it happened very early in the year, and the weather there was hot and sunny, so I think my body kind of thought it was summer. And when I returned home, the weather has been terrible ever since, and because it happened back in February, it kind of felt like I'd done my big accomplishment for the year. So finding that motivation to get back out and train and look ahead to the other events I've got coming was pretty difficult. And it's probably only this week, maybe 6 or 7 weeks later, that I've managed to re-find that motivation. So what have I done to shrug off those spring blues? Now, because my next events aren't till June, probably a good 8-9 weeks away now, I've programmed in a couple of little overnight trips where I'm going to ride somewhere, stay the night and ride back the next day. Just something to look forward to, slightly longer ride, which will be beneficial for those bike packing trips I've got later in the year, but ultimately something to work towards to build a bit of motivation. Kind of linked to that as well, it's been helpful to set out my training for the next 8 or 9 weeks, so I know what I'm doing each day, and there's some nice little targets to tick off along the way. Ironically, one of the things I think's actually helped was being ill at the Dales Divide a couple of weeks ago. It forced me off the bike for about a week and kind of gave me time to have a bit of a mental reset and a little bit of the rest, so that I've come back into this next block of training feeling pretty refreshed and raring to go. And something that's completely outside of my control, it's the weather. And this week's kind of been the first week where it's been dry most of the week. The rain's kind of let up a bit, has been a bit windy at times, but the sun has actually come out. A couple of things that you can control, and that's buying a new bit of kit that you can look forward to using or riding. Perhaps even something very simple like a new jersey, new pair of shoes. For me, it was actually buying a new, well, new to me, second-hand bike, which I've been enjoying this weekend. Been looking forward to riding it and tinkering with it, setting it up for me, a bike that I'm going to use in the summer for some of those longer events. And another thing that can be quite helpful is getting out and riding with some others, leaning into and borrowing their motivation, hearing about their training, their events and their plans is sometimes just enough to reignite that spark inside you. And for me, that's what yesterday was about, getting on that training ride with my friends and seeing how I'm faring. And actually I was going a lot better than I thought, which has been really great for my motivation. So if you're anything like me, you probably don't suffer from the winter blues, because in the middle of winter you're still pretty motivated for those upcoming events. But as it drags on and heads towards spring, that time you spent training and that gap to the good weather and those events you plan still seems pretty big. So this week it finally feels like I'm breaking through. My motivation to train and to race is back. But right now it's time to crack on to Shaftesbury to ride up Gold's Hill. Tollard Royal, nice big climbing coming. Really steep, so I'm gonna have to stand up now. that's the top, about 270 meters up, one of the highest climbs around the area, I think. Now we've got an awesome descent. Absolutely love going down there. Now we're almost at Shaftesbury and then we'll soon be at Gold Hill. Here we go. Oh, so made it to the top without walking. Now we're descending back down. Just coming into Mere, which is the halfway point for this ride. It's been quite a lot of headwind actually, so I'm hoping when I turn round I'll get a nice tailwind on the way back home. It's not the most adventurous route, it's just a out and back. Just wanted to see how far north I could go in about 2 hours, turn around and turn it into a 4-hour ride. Just stopped for a cheeky espresso and Mars bar, back in, but not all the way up. So a slight change of plan for the route home. I'm going to push out further east down the Wiley Valley, come back over Broad Chalk because there's a nice tailwind pushing me east, and I'll avoid going up the zigzag, which was quite busy this morning. So it's the last real climb of the ride, coming up and out of Broad Chalk. Then we have a nice steady descent almost all the way to Fordingbridge. Ooh, should we take a quick look at that new bike then? So this is my new to me second-hand road bike. It is a, I think 2021 Specialized Roubaix frame with a SRAM force group set, and I've stuck my Hunt Aero wheels on and took the wheels off that came with it. I've also changed out the strange hover bar for a normal handlebar, I guess. Need to finish doing the tape because I'm still messing around a little bit with the stem length and bar position. But so far so good. I thought it was going to be a little bit slow, but it seems to go quite well. About to get a cracking view. It's one of my favourite views when you come out of this little line of trees looking across Cranbourne Chase. If you've got any tips or suggestions to help others find their motivation, then please drop them below, and you never know, I might even try them myself. There isn't much further for me to ride now, so hopefully you found this video useful and maybe it will help you get over the spring blues. All that's left to say is thanks for watching.